Hello, class. My name is Narissa Ashford, and I did my presentation on culturally responsive teaching and the brain by Zaretta Hammond. The title is much longer than that. That's all I could fit in the slide. This book talks about the link between actual physiological brain, parts of the brain, and how it relates to learning and things that can improve or stop learning based on the stimulus coming in to the brain and what our students are experiencing while trying to learn. So, culturally responsive teaching, defined by Zaretta Hammond in her book, is a technique in education that relates to students' culture, language, and life experiences to what they learn in the classroom. So, it's not a book with a list of actual things to do in your classroom, like hang up multicultural pictures and, celebrate all the holidays and, like catchphrases and things to say. It's not. It's not in that aspect of culturally responsive teaching. It's more so changing your mindset as an educator to be more culturally responsive to our students, because we all know that America's a melting pot, so we're definitely dealing with people of different cultures and values. All right, so the main themes that Hammond focuses on in the book are educator awareness, different ways of information processing, which has a lot to do with the physiological brain. This was the main section of the book. Building learning partnerships and belonging to a community of learners. So, under educator awareness, we have biases, social cues, and deficit thinking. Definitely, we all have biases. We come from different cultures and backgrounds. We have different experiences. We've lived different lives from our students. So we're biased. Even in the way we teach, we're biased. We teach the way that we learn best, and that's not necessarily the best for our students. So it's definitely a good idea as an educator to embrace UDL, Universal Design for Learning, and also more project based learning, where the students really have to engage in those critical thinking skills and decision making skills, and they have to do the research, and then they have to work it backwards because they know what the goal is. Like, they need to solve this problem. How are they going to get there? So they have to do all the background research and, build themselves up. And that's the way the world is going. Not to say we don't need factory workers or anything like that, but education definitely has not changed much in that regard over the last 100 years. So we have to be aware of our implicit and explicit biases in the classroom, and just be mindful of it. Really, just you know, even with the way we present ourselves, the way our body language and our facial expressions, towards our students, because especially adolescents in middle school and high school, they are definitely sensitive and they are easily offended. So just keep those in mind. Social cues, verbal and nonverbal cues given to students, are based on the educator's cultural values and background. So, yes, we definitely have to watch what we say around our students and to our students. Everything we say should just be encouraging and uplifting. And we definitely need to give them our best every day. We have to let them know that they are the focus in our classrooms and they're what's most important and they're learning. Even the nonverbal cues, like I said, body language, facial expressions, you might not even be feeling a way towards a student. You just might have things going on in life. But it's okay to be open and honest with your students when you're going through things, and just let them know, hey, it's not you guys, it's not personal. Just be open and honest with them. That really builds that relationship, and they know that you're a person and you go through things too. Like, you know, we don't live in the schools like my son used to think his teacher did. We actually have homes and lives and families and things going on too. So it's good to be open with our students. Deficit thinking is huge. This is the belief that culturally diverse students struggle academically from their own deficiencies or lack of value in education. And we definitely have to change that mindset as educators because students already put themselves down. And then if we add fuel to the fire, it's harder to pull them back in than it is to encourage them from the start to beat down their negativity. We have to come in positive. We have to come in hard with that positive for our students. Information processing. So the brain has two regions responsible for information processing: the reptilian region, or what we call the lizard brain, and then the limbic region, what we call the emotional brain. So the lizard brain is all pure instinct. This is our basic survival mechanism in our bodies. This is always on, doesn't think, always reacts. This is like our involuntary body functions: breathing, heart rate, pH, temperature, things that if we had control of, we'd probably like kill ourselves. But thank God our brain takes control. The limbic region, or the emotional brain, it links our emotions, behavior, and cognition. All right, so the lizard brain includes four parts: the brainstem, the cerebellum, basal ganglia, and the hypothalamus. The limbic brain has three parts: the thalamus, amygdala, and hippocampus. Here we go into what they do. So the lizard brain is the oldest part of the brain and is responsible for our basic involuntary body functions, like I mentioned before. Our limbic brain is the mammalian brain, connecting emotions, behavior, and cognition, the parts of the brain that really make us human. And big surprise, of course, everything in the brain is a cohesive unit and things link together. There is not one part of the brain that is solely responsible for one function. The brain shares all functionality throughout the brain. There are areas where you can centralize some things, but the brain is very plastic that way, that it will share responsibility. So the limbic and lizard brain share the hypothalamus and the basal ganglia, connecting the two, connecting our survival instincts with our emotions and our human parts of us. So our reticular activating system, or RAS, is responsible for alertness and attention. So we always talk about that engagement piece with our students. Like, we have to get the students engaged. We have to get them vested into their learning. And alertness and attention comes from this area of the brain. This is also part of the lizard brain. Memory is actually part of the limbic system. The thalamus is responsible for communication. So all communications coming in and going out. The hippocampus houses short-term memory, and the amygdala is responsible for emotional processing. It ties it all in. Our memory, short-term is hippocampus, long-term is neocortex. To get things from the short-term to the long-term, we have to think, and practice. That's the way it goes. Things that are done repetitively, like critical thinking, decision making, to keep our students in that frame of mind, constantly searching, being curious. We have to really engage them and dig into their curiosity, which takes getting to know our students. So there is something huge that Hammond mentions in her book called the amygdala hijack. So this is when the amygdala bypasses the thalamus and is designed to react in less than a second. Because remember, the amygdala is going to kick in that flight or fight response. That is our basic survival mechanism, and it's not going to really consider anything else. So it reacts in less than a second. You can't sit there and think, oh, is the tiger coming to get me? Should I run? Should I grab a stick and defend myself? What should I do? Your body's going to like instantly kick in that fear, and that's that amygdala hijack. So your body senses a social or physical threat, and it sends a distress signal in the form of cortisol. We all know about cortisol. I'm 46. It's making me rounder in the middle. My face is all cortisol-y. Once I'm finished with this degree, I'm sure I can reduce that cortisol a little bit. But right now, I'm in it full time. I'm going for the gusto. But Once this hijack takes place, it stops all other cognition, such as learning, problem solving, and creative thinking. Because remember, now we're in survival mode, so everything else is at a halt. Everything else stops. And so this is what's happening to our students. They may come in to school like this from whatever home situation they're coming from. We have no idea. We get them when they walk through the door. We have no idea what happened before they walk through the door. That's why it's so important to build that rapport with our students where they feel comfortable with us, letting us know, hey, I didn't eat this morning. Like, go in the snack drawer on my desk and get you a granola bar. We gotta get this cogwheel going. And we just have to be aware of what's going on with our students. And we really have to show them that we care. So safe versus stressed. So we have more power than you think as educators when our neurological connections realize that our surroundings are emotionally, physically, and socially safe. We are primed for learning, and our receptors read our environment as safe. But when it is negative, we are stressed. And it is negative because of cultural mismatch or subtle microaggressions that our body goes on alert, and it comes up with this self-defense mechanism which initiates that amygdala hijack. So when our students feel like we're dismissive or condescending in our tone when we speak to them, or if we give them a look that's stressful to them or unapproving, or they feel that they've disappointed us somehow, it kicks in, and then what happens? They stop learning. Like it automatically shuts off because the amygdala goes in less than a second. So input. So our brain receives stimulus and decides what to do with that information. Elaboration is the second part, where students need the time and space to actually chew on the information we just gave them. We can't just keep bombarding them with information and be like, oh, present something for me, demonstrate your learning. We definitely have to give them time to think about it, to even talk it out with a peer. And that's why small group work and partner work is so important in the classroom. And then application. So after the first two steps are completed, then students have to tie in their prior knowledge with the new information to, one, establish long-term memory, and two, help apply it to the real world or create a solution for a real world problem. So, building learning partnerships. Culturally responsive relationships with students are critical for learning and fostering a learning environment. Educators, that's us, have to show that we authentically care about our students in order to build rapport and relationships. And on the student's end, building a culture of care helps dependent students move towards independent learning. So this is another thing Hammond really focused on in her book about how dependent students come independent, and how they stay dependent based on the No Child Left Behind, just push them through like cattle system. It just takes that one good teacher that cares, and that teacher will have a lasting effect on them, and they will keep going. But if they never receive that teacher, they just stay dependent learners, and they fall further and further behind. So the deficit thinking paradigm. So I already spoke about educators, but for the students, on the students' end, the deficit thinking on their behalf is that they believe they are unable to learn due to a deficit within themselves. It's that fixed intelligence thinking instead of the growth mindset. So we definitely want to instill that in our students, letting them know that knowledge can be acquired. You can tie it into previous experience, and you can retain it, and you can apply it to real world. And teaching them those critical thinking skills, allowing them time to, discuss ideas and information with their peers. But when students believe they're unable to learn, and if we don't turn that mindset around for them, it triggers a fear of learning, and then they have the amygdala hijack, and cortisol can block learning for 20 minutes. Now, I know most of my classes are 40 minutes to 50 minutes. So if they're checked out for 20 minutes, that's like half the class time. By the time they get in and get settled, and then by the time we have to do a little exit ticket and dismiss. Like, that's 20 minutes is half your class is gone, and they have got nothing. They'll sit in a group, they'll chat with someone, but they have nothing. Their brain is shut down, and we definitely have to do something about that. We can't just let them go shut down for half the class. Another important point, students never forget how a teacher makes them feel. It is very important to be encouraging and uplifting and positive with our students every moment we get. We have to let them know they can do it. All right, so belonging to a community of learners. This was another large point in Hammond's book. Educators have to introduce students to cognitive routines that allow them structured thinking time. So not just get into groups just to talk. We have to give them talking points. We have to give them ideas and things to think about, or something that might draw curiosity, like, fact-finding questions, something to get that higher level of thinking, that deeper level of thinking going on, and letting them engage in conversation with their peers, sharing their ideas and their thought processes. Educators have to invite students to create procedures for the classroom, making them feel like they belong. Like, if they help choose the rules for the classroom, like raise your hand if you want to talk, sign out, use the bathroom pass if you want to go to the bathroom, establishing the rules of the classroom, but doing it together as a community makes them have ownership and involvement. They're involved, they're invested in the class. Educators need to strengthen intellectual conversations with students. So, just going beyond the content that we give them, but making them really think, like applying it to the real world. I know for one of my units in health, when I teach health, there's always the nutrition unit, but I always explain what an Oxfam dinner is, and that's where they call it a famine banquet. So Oxfam will come and set it up. They have a team of people, and so everyone pays like $50. I went to one like back in 1998. It might be more than $50 now after COVID and inflation, but I digress. So you pay $50 to get into this banquet, and you get a ticket, a color ticket. And you have to sit at a table of that color. And then they bring out the food. And so you can tell who the poor nations are, like the developing nations, because they get like a plate of rice and like a couple of chicken breasts, and there's like 15 people at a table. And then you'll have like the golden ticket people who are at the golden table. There's only like 4 of them, and they get like plates of lobster and shrimp. It's ridiculous. And yes, I was one of the poor people, so I did not get lobster and shrimp at my table. But the point of it was to show how famine is around the world. Because, in the United States, we're in our little closed bubble, and some of us don't get out. But that's just an example, making them think like, how would you feel if you were at one of these banquets? They may never go to one, but just to engage that thinking. All right, Community of Learners continued. Students need the chance to actively process all new content. Once this information makes it to our working memory, it must be mixed with existing background knowledge. This is how we establish long-term memory and how students get to deeper levels of thinking and critical thinking. Teachers are the mediator between the old and new information and the connections that the students make between the two. So we definitely have to help the students make connections. We have to make it relatable to them culturally. We can't just say, oh, well, we assume everyone celebrates Christmas. No, someone might be Jewish. Someone might celebrate Kwanzaa. Someone might be, Muslim. You never know. And so we have to make it applicable to everyone. So, you want to make sure it's topics where everyone has something they can discuss and share information. Classroom implications. So students must be allowed to talk amongst themselves and their peers and share ideas. Students need to talk about their own learning and thinking processes with peers. This allows dependent learners to build their academic stamina to engage in meaningful academic dialogue. This is very important for our students, especially in adolescent. With me, I'm going for biology, 7th through 12th, and with my population of students, I definitely know we engage them in using like scientific terms and terminology. No, we're not going to just say the chemicals fizzed. We're going to say it was a chemical reaction, and what we observed was fizzing. Like they have to use the word chemical reaction as part of their scientific text, their scientific vocabulary, and just building on things like that, and just getting our students on that level. Well, that is the end of my presentation. I thank you guys so much for listening. Hope you all have a wonderful vacation.